Hey man, how are you doing?
Very well, mate. You?
Awesome. Yeah, good, thank you, mate. Yeah, thank you for coming on, bro.
No,
Um,
no problem. No problem.
how have you dealt with the whole lockdown situation?
Um, you mean as a whole, or just from the business perspective?
Just as a whole, really. Just kind of managing your time, because we'll
Okay.
go into your story eventually, but I kind of want you
Yeah,
to
no,
go
no
into that.
problem. No problem. I'm a bit different to everyone else. This isn't lockdown to me. From the background I come from, this is not lockdown. This is something else for me. This is a time to reflect, adjust, and keep progressing. We're as humans, we naturally have that ability where we should be constantly progressing and trying to better ourselves as progressive human beings. So the lockdown hasn't really affected me in any way. It's just enabled me to do the things that I haven't really had time to do before, and to acquire new
Right.
skills. So that's a big one for me.
I love that. I think that it's been funny to see the reaction of some of the people. Before lockdown, right? They said they don't have time to do stuff. It's been really kind of interesting to see how people have kind of dealt with time on the hands. You know, so
Yeah, it's a great. Listen, it's just the fact that we can wake up, open our eyes, and take a breath is amazing in this day and age. And I just feel that so many people focus on the here and now. They're focused about when can we go back to training, when can we do this, when can we do that. The big thing isn't that right now. The big thing is staying healthy, staying fit, protecting and preserving our families and people around us, and that will come at a later date. Part of self-defense mindset that I teach a lot is health defense. What we think, what thoughts we let manifest inside our head, and how we outwardly portray them. What we eat is part of health defense. And it's a key factor now more than anything, that our minds and bodies are strong. So that's a big one to work with.
100%. For me, the few things that I've kind of really took away are reading. Like I never really kind of gave much of an effort to kind of read books, but I've kind of become addicted just to self help, almost like non-fiction books.
Self-betterment.
100%, bro. Um, and I think it'd be brilliant to hear some of the books that you could recommend to some people. That could pick up a book. They could buy it on eBay, £4. You can get a used book.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm quite an avid reader when it comes to books, but I think the self-help books, people can read all of the books they want. They can, take from it what they want, but unless you're applying those strategies and that mindset and what that actually is to your life, because people will always pick up a book and go, I've read the book, but where's the results? And they don't realize these
Right.
results, they take time, they take effort. You are going to fail without a doubt, and that's going to be part of the process, the acceptance process. I personally don't believe in failing. I believe it's just a process one goes through to build resilience and to better themselves for what they can portray. There are a lot of books out there. There's some great books out there, but I think self-help books, I think people have to kind of research a little bit and see where they're going in life, what they want to
Right.
do. Habits was a good book for me. It was about I can't remember the author, but I could find it. It's here somewhere. And that was about being constructive with your time, and understanding and acknowledging that we have these negative habits, and if we can shade them away until they're less negative and more positive, then our habits become better. In turn, our life becomes better. But it is a process. It takes a long time.
It's a process, right? And
And I'm
yeah,
a lot older than most people in jiu-jitsu, trust me. So I draw a lot of experience. I'm quite a senior, but like in age-wise than most. So I'm still learning every day.
100%. And that's a good mindset to have, right? Like never been knowing it all. You're constantly looking for new ways of thinking about things.
For sure.
And this is part of the reason that I started the podcast, man. Like just kind of getting ideas from people like yourself, that have lived it. and they see things in a different way as a result of, you know, decades of martial arts experience, man. It's it's a pretty
now I sound like a dinosaur. Now I sound like a relic.
That's it.
But you were asking me about some books. I just pulled up one of my Instagram posts, which was a collection of books, which were some favorites of mine. It was actually on a post of mine.
Okay.
And there's a whole collection on them, and it's a wide range of things relating from self-reliance to thank you economy, deep work, tribes. There's all sorts of incredible reading material on there, and I posted that. I think that was 6 days ago.
Yeah, I mean, there's meditations there. I can see that now. That's some Stoic philosophy, and that's something that I picked up from a few other people in jiu-jitsu scene. Like they tend to go to Stoic philosophy. Do you think you kind of got something from Marcus Aurelius in here?
Yeah, definitely.
No, I actually
definitely.
I bought it the other day.
Amazing. Amazing. I think Marcus Aurelius, you know, not only being a war commander, a war in chief, but a decision maker, and if we're talking about it from that era in time, I think in order to be, we've seen a rise lately of fake gurus. You know, we've seen a rise of fake gurus popping out, even more so. If you look on the internet, you know, I get these pop-ups, strange pop-ups that say, do you want to make £1 million? Do you want to do it?
Yeah.
Now, people are just faking their life out of things, you know, and they're kind of preying on people's vulnerability now during these tight times. And then we have 100%. The other, you know, I call them the Peter Pans, the people that have never grown up. They're in men's body, but they're kids really with their mindset and what they do. They've never grown up. They're Peter Pans, you know, and they've grown up and suddenly they've decided to be the leader of this new school or whatever it is. And listen, being a leader and talking about philosophy of life and all of that stuff, being a leader is not by choice. I was never chosen to lead my school or be the leader of that school. It was kind of bestowed upon me indirectly, and then I just took the reins, and where everyone else didn't want those reins, I just took the reins and let it run, you know. And with that comes there's a lot more to jiu-jitsu and to these books and to the philosophy and to life than just being that brand, that figure, you know, that whatever it is, you know, that people want to make it. And remember, I say this whole, you know, from a place of truthfulness. I'm not a world champion, never had an intention of being a world champion. I don't want that accolade. I don't want that kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? That label, because world champions are one a piece, they come and go. But what I want to do is be able to transmit the information that life has given me, the journey of life and the journey of jiu-jitsu, and transmit that correctly and accurately to those coming after me, so they too can find a way, not my way, not your way, but their way, a way, you know. And that's where I'm at with that sort of thing, philosophically wise.
100%. So is that because you told me you recently wrote a book, The Mission?
Right.
Is that based on some of the things you've experienced throughout your life, and is it something manifested by these philosophies that you've been studying?
Yeah, completely. I mean, my philosophy is life and experience. Your life will be totally different to mine, but I will be able to learn from mistake or from what you do good. So and that's life. But the book itself, The Mission, is about where I came from, and it's my memento mori, if you like. It's my kind of eulogy, you know. It's my life kind of up to this point. And who knows, there may be a part 2. It hasn't gone to publish yet. The book is it's sitting with someone right now who is very interested in. And it's listen, I never wanted to do that. I wasn't excited. It didn't motivate me to do it. But during this time, I thought to myself, listen, if I'm going to ever have the time to do this, you know, I've got nearly 50 years of experience to bring to the table. and present to those that come after me, just as a message for those that come after me. Don't do what I did this way, because it never worked for me. You know, in fact, you know, there's an old Bruce Lee saying, it's where there's no way, find a way. You know, if it's not work, if it doesn't work and it's not effective or efficient, get rid of it and make it effective and efficient. And that's the whole story behind that book.
And that's actually quite powerful, because a lot of the books that you see these days from like you say, these gurus almost, they're saying things that they think you want to hear, right? And it's fluff, and it's not anything that's actually predicated on anything but ideas. And it's like this fairy tale, but then if you draw upon your life experiences, that's something that can't be made up, because you've lived it. You've seen the ins, you've seen the outs, you've seen the shit, you've seen the best bits, and I think that people will resonate with that. So would you be able to kind of like summarize some of the points that you go over in the book?
Of course, yeah, of course. I mean, I'm not one of those guys who say, I can tell you this, but go and buy the book. That's a cheap, you know, that's a cheap way of trying to say something. Listen, it's something that I wanted to do. You know, very recently. It's not a kind of long-going thing. The book literally starts about my life growing up in the East End of London, my background, broken home. Sounds a bit like a sad story. It's not. It was never meant to be a sad story. It's just an insight to understand what makes me tick the way I do, how my mind works. Yeah, it's just kind of like an idea. So no need for violins or tissues with that one, because everyone has a story, and without that story, I wouldn't be who I am. It then progresses through kind of from a very early age of around 13 years old, all the way to my current time, including time in the services, time spent on active duty in specialist organizations and operations, all the way up to my jiu-jitsu journey, and then proceeds to the point of where we are now. And I'm sure I could write a lot more if I come back a year from now. So I'm not looking to make money from it or anything like that. I just felt that it was the right time to do something like that. And I'm a nobody in the grand scheme of things. But where my children could have a point of reference in dad's life, that's what he did, and that's where he was at that point in his life. And for everyone else, right? And so those starting out in jiu-jitsu will take hopefully something from jiu-jitsu and realize that, hey, well, that was there, and then and this is here, and this is where I am, and this is how it's changed, and it's just a point. It's a stick in the ground that says this was that point. That's all it was, you know. That's all it is. It's nothing more. And I'll be playing it down if I said there wasn't some funny and interesting things in there from my perspective. You know.
I mean,
it is what it is.
I mean, being did you say it was specialist firearms officer? Like,
correct, yeah.
Is that centre of London?
Actually, when I did it before it was cool, if you like, because it was. They're now known as SO19. When I did it, we were SO13, and we were the last of the guys to have the berets and all the rest of it. And we served on very, very high-profile cases, not only here but in host countries, Nairobi sieges, and there was all sorts of things that went on, which was really weird because I had to get disclosure, and they still don't allow me to disclose certain things under the Secrets Act. That we it's crazy. Yeah. It's crazy, and it sounds cloak and dagger, and it isn't. It isn't what people make it out to be. It's a lot of boring work, but there are flashes in time and moments where you go, wow, we did that. We were there. That happened. Like I was part of that. And that's incredible because people have a totally different perspective. Like the 7/7 bombings and all of that stuff. We saw all that through. So
yeah, I mean that must come with massive amounts of life experience as well. Do you kind of have any experiences that you can share about that? Obviously, some of it's confidential. But
yeah, listen, when people use that word, oh, it's confidential, I always look at them and think, you don't belong to a secret organization. But we have signed certain things, and there are still ongoing investigations surrounding certain things that we couldn't allude to. And also there's this thing of putting ourselves on offer. You know, someone could have a grievance with a unit that I'd worked with, and then target me as one. You know, so I'm very conscious.
Right.
I'm very careful what I say.
For sure. For sure.
But it's not all bullets and gun blazing, and it's not lights, camera, action. You know, there's been some very low points in my journey. For example, the 7/7 stuff. I can recall going into King's Cross underground station after the explosion and stepping over body parts and trying to help people, you know, horrendous stuff. And, you know, like I always say this, no one really calls the police and dials 999 and go and says like, "Hi officer, we're having a really good day. We just want to say thanks for everything you're doing and well done." No, they dial 999 when it's gone bad, you know, when it's gone bad, right? And as first responders, and I was plod, people that walked around for 3 years before I specialized. And my specialist career, I'll give you an overview real quick. There's been everything from undercover drug buying all the way through to specialist firearms teams, 999 call response officer, rope access team, building entries, hostage negotiations, being housed in host country. So I've done a fair bit. And in the grand scheme of things, yeah, there's a moment in time. That's all behind me now. I'm 10 years out of that. That's all behind. But it was a moment in time where, and things have progressed since there, where that was that moment, you know, and that's what I did. And I'm not shy to say that. And some people are very shy to say, "Oh, I was a police officer." I'm very proud, you know, I'm very proud that I saved lives and I help people. And if I and everything I ever did was justified and by the books, you know. So I'm not saying there aren't unscrupulous officers, but you know, I've never seen that. So, and I wouldn't have that. That wouldn't kind of show up on my watch. So yeah, that's
for sure. That's it. Awesome. Well, and then is that where you kind of transitioned into jiu-jitsu? I
was actually.
Or were you doing that? Were you doing that? Oh, were you doing it before? Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
A lot of people heard about jiu-jitsu in 1993. I was one of the fortunate ones that heard about it a little bit before that. A little bit before post 93. So on my travels to Brazil and other places, I learned the hard way about jiu-jitsu. And then if I can just talk real quick about how that worked in the police, I never injured anyone during an arrest or a restraint situation, or people were subdued very quickly, and it didn't take, you know, these horrendous things we see with 20 officers on top of one guy and people losing their life. And it was never that when I was involved. I'm not saying that didn't happen, but it was never that when I was, not because I was superhuman. But the first thing that I learned about martial arts was, if we have to use it, we failed, especially in a confrontation, because the first weapon we have is our voice, is the ability to apologize. You know, even if you're in the right, it's a big thing for martial arts, because we learn this, and I label it a superpower, because it is. You know, I'm sure when you train jiu-jitsu, you realize that the size I am, I'm not a very big guy, but I've had some monsters come in and just mauled them, and then kind of baptized them to converting over to jiu-jitsu. And that's exactly what happened to me. I went to the academy in Brazil, in Gracie and I saw these guys, and I thought I was sizing them up, you know.
This is so crazy.
Sizing them up and got mauled, and then wanted to learn what that was. Why did I get mauled?
Yeah.
You know?
So that you kind of just took a gap year, or did you kind of just go to Brazil just to kind of, how did you end up going to Brazil in the first place?
Vacation. It started off as a vacation. I belonged to a Thai boxing group back then, and there was a tournament out in Brazil, and we had some guys representing out there. So we went out there, and I mean, those guys, they're tough people. You know, they're naturally very smiley Brazilians, very, very nice and generous and very deep-rooted cultured people. And so the tournament happened, and then we had a couple of down days, and I was hearing about this family, this Gracie family, and someone at the hotel, it was actually a porter boy, said, "Listen, I can show you their school. It's not far from here." So being interested in martial arts, I said, okay, show me, let's go see. Remember, I was a Thai boxer at the time. And so we went there. And when I look back now, the people that were in that academy was the who's who. It was a kind of infamous, you know, Royler, Hickson, Hoxer, all of the guys were in there. The legends, you know, Helsong was there. Helio was there. You know, it was legendary.
What?
So if you go back over my Instagram, you'll see some pictures of me and the old man out there.
That's insane, bro.
So, and I'm not the only one. Listen, there were many. I met some English people like Ben Poppleton. I don't know if you know Ben.
No, I don't know.
Out there. I saw Ben out there. Rick Young, he was one of the old school guys out there. And so we were dotted around, okay? And so my first day in the academy, they said, oh, you train? And they would film me and say, oh, you're athletic and that. Do you want to train? And yeah, put a gi on. And one of the very first training sessions I had in the academy, they mauled me. I can remember.
I can imagine. 100%.
They took me to the ground, and it was choke. It was arm lock. I felt like I was in a tumble dryer. Body left and right and upside down. I didn't know what was happening. And then all with a smile on their face.
Yeah.
You know, and I didn't know how to tap properly at that time, and their English wasn't great. And it was just fun for me. And then I went back to the hotel. And I remember turning the light off and licking my wounds in the dark, saying, man, what just happened? I'm young, I'm athletic, I'm bigger than most of these guys. And I just got more. And I can remember I couldn't swallow from the chokes properly for like 3-4 days. I was drinking ice water. And then I said, nah, this can't happen. I'm going back. So I went back, again. And by the end of that week we were there, I couldn't bend both of my arms where they'd been arm locked so much, and I couldn't swallow properly. And we came back to England, and I was like, man, I've got to hang my gloves up. I need to learn
go back. Yeah.
I have to, because it wasn't just grappling like we see today. They actually gave me gloves and said, attack us and mauled me. You know, so it was an insane time. You know, it was insane. And then I came back, and then it progressed from there. I started to train at London Bridge with a guy called Shen Morales. Listen, I don't know the level of that guy, but all I know, he was teaching jiu-jitsu. And then it was Mark Warder after that one. And then eventually remaining with Royler and the Gracie family.
So you moved back to the UK to continue training jiu-jitsu?
No, I had to come back because visa issues. You don't get time to stay over there. They catch you and it's a wrap.
Right. Okay. So were you trained under Royler then, or someone else?
Okay. So the Royler's been the main influence in my jiu-jitsu. He's been what I would consider. He would be who I would refer to as my teacher in jiu-jitsu. That said, I have trained with every single Gracie known that I know of. And
I can't believe that, bro.
I'm talking about the main ones. There's a very old picture. Yeah. Horion, Holker, Hickson, Royler, Hoyce, and Helio. And I've trained with each and every one of them. Each one different.
You've rolled with the founder of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, and I'm not the only one. Listen, I'm not the only one. There's many people that have trained with him. And when we refer to Grandmaster Helio as the founder, I would say he was the Einstein behind the whole thing. I would say he made the necessary adaptations. The founder is to be debated on which point in time are we referring to. Because if we're talking about the founder, you could say it was Carlos, because to my knowledge, Helio never set eyes on Mitsui Maeda. He never took a lesson from him. He learned solely through watching his brothers, right? So there are some misconceptions. So when people refer to Grandmaster Helio as the founder, I know why they do that. I completely understand why they do that. Yeah. And it's not incorrect to do that, right? I'm not saying it's right or wrong. But I would say he definitely made the adjustments. He definitely utilized technique over strength. And he was definitely one of the first fighters, real fighters, to come out of the family, because before him, we had Gaston Gracie, we had George Gracie. George would be fighting in circus events and fight in like WWE wrestlers. Not saying they were fake fights, but it wasn't the level that Helio was fighting at. And then, of course, we have after Helio, we have Carlson. You know, we have those guys and Carlos and, you know, those fighters come through Holes and Hickson. So there's a huge dynasty and there's a lot of interweaving and a lot of misconceptions about it. And I'm not saying your point was wrong. I'm just saying it depends on the way it's looked at.
But am I right in saying that Helio, he wasn't actually training for the first few years of his life? He was just watching his brothers because they said he was too small.
Correct. It wasn't the fact that he was, from what I get, too small. He was unwell. He had some medical conditions. Yeah. He wasn't athletic. He wasn't strong. And then if you look at what he did, you know, he would turn up at the academy and his brothers would be late to the academy. So he started to teach private lessons. And during the private lessons, he started to make the necessary adaptations to suit him. And then when he demonstrated those reactions, those technical adjustments, the brothers were like, okay, great. He began to teach. Then not only did he begin to teach, he began to challenge certain people. And no weight, no time limit, no rounds. Even fighting people, you know, 30 kilos bigger, you know, and stronger. So it's some incredible stuff. He was an Einstein, you know, back then. And whether he won or lost, he went and gave his best. And you can't give better than your best, right? And there's a lot of common misconceptions that people have. People have these stories that run away. With them.
And that's it. But what was it like, man? Like, it must have been like an incredible atmosphere. Just I'm guessing at that time they didn't have such a big name for themselves, but still they kind of had that belief system in place. Like that must have been infectious, you know, like being surrounded by that.
Two words that you just said, belief and infectious, they're massive. And I'll come to those points in a second. But I didn't know I was in the room with giants. I had no idea. Fast forward, you know, 26 years now I've been training. So fast forward that time, I've been around jiu-jitsu and seeing everything and understanding, you know, I believe jiu-jitsu is the truth, no matter what. And I bring that from a genuine place because I'm a martial artist before and I'm a martial artist now, but I was baptized from one martial art to another because of the truth. When someone says to you, hey, Joe, listen, attack me however you want, with whatever you like, I'm going to do me, you do you. And they defeat you multiple times. When you're in your prime, when you're athletic, when you're, you know, you're there for one reason, it's to war, you know. And you try as hard as you can. And they not only do they defeat you, they do it with a smile on their face. Yeah. And all you have to, the beautiful thing in jiu-jitsu is we tap and then we let go and we go again, right? And it's not only demoralizing, but it's a valuable turn in humbleness, because we have to be humble. Jiu-jitsu has a strange way of, if you're not humble, you'll pay. It will humble you. It will break you. You know, it's incredible. So back then with these guys, I can remember Helio coming onto the mat, and I remember looking at the guy, thinking, who the hell is this old man? What's he gonna show? And
how old was he when you first met him?
Remember, no English, right? Royler couldn't speak English, right? So Holker couldn't speak English. They had a couple people in the academy, Americans, who were translating broken Brazilian Portuguese and English. And Helio wouldn't come and go, hey, you need to do this. He would come over and move your hand in a position, or he would stop the class. He would watch black belts teaching, stop the class, go onto the mat, and then demo it, and then ask them to test it against him, you know. So,
without saying a word.
Listen, it's incredible. The teaching methodology they have is unbelievable. The methodology, not the techniques are the techniques, right? And they're refined and they're variations. Their teaching methodology, even now at the Gracie University, which are, you know, they're friends of mine, I've known those guys from kids, is unbelievable. They're the best teachers, I believe. You know, that side have the best teachers, you know, and that was their whole ethos. It wasn't about fighting. It wasn't about, and it's the same with the belt system. It wasn't about fighting. It wasn't about how tough or strong you were. It was about your ability to transmit information correctly to someone else so that the information remains in its entirety. So it works for everyone. It's incredible. It's unbelievable.
That's fascinating. It really, really is. So when you were rolling with these guys, were you a white belt at that point? Because I'm guessing it was more striking that you were doing before with the Thai boxing.
I'm still a white belt now. I'm still a white belt now. I have always and will always be a white belt, right? And as cliche as that sounds, people say there are 4 belts in jiu-jitsu, you know, white, blue, purple, and 5 and black, and then so on. I say there's 4 belts because the white is a given. We don't earn that belt. That's a given belt.
Yeah.
And although we receive degrees on the belt, it's still a given belt. We haven't earned that belt. We earn the stripes that go on it. And even up to the point I am now, I've been a black belt since late 2007. So it's been a while. I am learning every day. My students are teaching me stuff every single day of my life, you know, whether it's a conversation, whether it's a technique, an adaptation, whatever it is, you know, it's a constant learning thing. And not knowing the icons that were on the mat, when I was on the mat, they would, you know, watching Royler, he was in his prime. You know, Royler was a killer. You know, people forget this guy is an absolute murderer. You know, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
He would walk on the mat and people would be like, murderer. And it would be like, damn. You know? and being in the academy with the greats like Saulo Ribeiro, Shanji Ribeiro, there was so many, Megaton, Diaz, you know, Pedro Saulo, the list is endless. And that's what I mean by the legends that were there. Kid Peligro, all of these guys, you know, absolute living legends of jiu-jitsu. And fast forward a few years and hanging out in the academy with these guys and getting to know them, unbelievable. When you look back and we see everything has come from that generation to this generation. And where we have our now generations, the Miaos and the Corneliuses and the Galvos and the Esteemas and the new generation of guys, you know, and how it's evolved is unbelievable.
Do you think that it's still a possibility to go over there to Brazil and be in a room with these greats still? Because obviously you've got Hickson, you've got Royler, you know, all these different people. Do you think it's still possible for, you know, anyone just to kind of go train with them, or is it quite a prestigious thing now?
No. I mean, it will always be a prestigious thing for me to spend time with those guys. I have Royler here, and it's very prestigious to have them. And I've been out there to San Diego. Royler, I can talk for Royler because I know him still, training with him and the rest of them as well. But Royler in particular, he has to preserve himself. He's a lot older now. He's been through the mill, but he will train. Don't get it twisted, you know. And he said something to me recently in a conversation. He said, "Hey man, listen, the blue belts can give you a tough time when you get to our age." And I said, "I know." And he's absolutely right. You have to pick your battles right, you know.
Wow.
Because he makes a living traveling and teaching. Imagine he took an injury, you know.
Game over.
It would be crazy, you know. And remember, he came out of retirement a few years back and fought Eddie Bravo again. They went and did it again, right? And listen, they did it again. That's all I'll say. You know, we had boys come out fighting MMA again. You know, at his age, you know, it's
mad.
Yeah, it's in their blood.
A lot of people say when you get to a certain age, you can still, a lot of people say that you can still do jiu-jitsu when you get older. Do you think that that's true, like, to a certain extent, or do you think that you have to be very careful of exactly, you know, what you said before with who you fight and who you roll with at a certain age?
I mean, we have to understand that, you know, the older we get, unfortunately, comes to everyone, and with every age has its beauty, right? So it's one of these things that I think, and I'm senior now in age, I still want to get on the mat and mix it up with people. And
Yeah.
I can do it, but I'll have the effects longer to recover. And
Right.
I think you have to be careful, not you, but we have to be careful that there are two things happening here psychologically. One is the trust. I have to trust the person I'm training with who recognizes I'm older, I do this for a living, that they're not going to beat me up, and I'm not going to beat them up, but we want to train, right? So we have to select our training partners. And then more than that, this option of I'm a black belt, they're a blue belt, they want to prove their worth, they want to prove that they've got skills to me where there's nothing to prove. Just the fact you show up on the mat proves enough, right? You could be home playing PlayStation or at the pub or whatever, but the fact that you show up, it proves a lot. And then the third one is, are we rolling to learn? Or are we tapping to teach, or are we tapping for our ego? So are we going to fight, or are we going to train? And I prefer to exchange knowledge with someone on the mat. And don't get me wrong, I have some very, very good guys in the academy and girls who give me a very tough time. But when you put a black belt on, or any belt really, there is a bar stool that people put you on and have an expectation, and they don't take into account. He just taught 6 private lessons and a group class, and now
that's true. That's so true, man. Yeah, from your perspective, you know, yes, you're a black belt, but you're still a human, you know. And from their perspective, they're thinking, this guy's a black belt. I need to do my best. So it's like that.
I need to come out swinging like Tiger Woods' wife after she found out, you know. But it's not that, right? And I think it's an educational process that we see these senior black. Can you imagine like Helio in his later years, 90 years old, and me or you go jump on the mat and try to tear clumps out of him? It may work. It may work. It may not. But two things are going to happen. He's going to go, that moron, and everyone around you are going to go, okay, sights on him. Let's go off. Like, let's put him right. That's not. And that comes back to my point about the world champion thing. Do you remember who was last year's heavyweight world champion?
No.
Exactly. My point is that. Okay, you close your door at night and you've got beautiful medals and you can show them off, and there were a flashpoint in your life, and that's beautiful, right? But longevity is the key. Being able to open and close the hands, being able to move the body parts, it doesn't affect you now, but later in your life, you know. And listen, I have competed in both jiu-jitsu and MMA. Been there, seen it, realized very quickly it's not for me, you know. And the kids that do that, maximum respect. You know, I love it. I think what they put into that and what they get out of it, and I think everyone should do it. But I also think if you don't want to do it, then don't do it. You compete every day in the academy. You fight every day in the academy. Some people don't handle that kind of stress so well, and as long as you're training and you have the purpose of training, you know, that's important.
I think that's good that people, especially people in Brazil, they kind of have that respect. People a bit older, you know, yes, they've had their time, but now you've got to be a bit more careful of what you do here. You know, this guy's, yes, he has the extensive knowledge, but in actual fact, his tendons are weak and they're old, right? So it doesn't matter how. So, yeah, I mean, you've got to be careful, man. You've got to be careful. I think you've got to have that realization when you get older as well, right? So I feel like
that self-awareness is so important.
I've spoke to a lot of people, and they get to a certain age, like my granddad and stuff, and they still feel young in their mind. They still feel like they can do stuff they used to be able to do. And when you get to that level of jiu-jitsu, and you're used to rolling around with guys 30 kilograms heavier than you, you're like, why can't I do this anymore? It's kind of this kind of, it's almost ego, I suppose, isn't it? But
definitely, we have to watch our ego, you know, all the time. And we're us as a jiu-jitsu community, we advocate leave your ego at the door. But look around the academy, the ego's alive and well. It's not leave the ego at the door. It's understand how to put that ego in check. You know, that looking at things for what they are in front of you and not for what you perceive them to be. Like if I train with someone lighter than me, less skilled than me, there is no way I'm going to put, you know, all my weight on them or for what? What am I going to? I'm going to let them climb all over me. I'm going to escape position. I'm going to work defense, escape positions. And then if I have one of the monsters come over, I say, okay, man, now I'm going to climb all over you. You're not going to put all that weight on me because I'm not going to let you, right? I'm going to angle my body in certain positions and just not let things like that happen, right? And I think that's the knowledge of jiu-jitsu. That's where the experience of jiu-jitsu comes.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to go into a bit as well, because a lot of the people that come into jiu-jitsu and they do have this ego on the first day. What do you kind of say when, as an instructor, when someone doesn't have that knowledge of their physiology and how they're a lot heavier than someone else, so they can actually damage them, you know, for good in some respects? Do you kind of say to some people, you know, like, have a word with them, or is it like learned through experience?
Yeah, I have a simple rule in my academy. I'm not a believer in accidents. Okay. If you injure someone and it's deemed intentional or malicious, you're going to be off the mat as long as they are. That's a good incentive not to injure nobody, right? The second thing is, whenever someone comes in, I explain to them, hey, we're all here to learn. We're all learning.
Yeah.
Okay?
Right.
Sometimes they won't spar for a while, you know. We've all seen this. The guy comes in, says, hey, I don't have any experience, blah, 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 never trained before, gets on the mat and suddenly goes heel hooking people.
Yes.
Right? So you can't lie on the mat. You cannot hide. Now, maybe the guy saw some YouTube videos and he doesn't know the dangers of the stuff he's doing, so he has to be educated, which is why sparring classes are very important. We have an intro class and we have a beginner class and we have a program that they have to learn. And we weed people out very quickly. And I say to them, listen, be honest with me. Have you trained before? And they'll say, oh, I've done 1 or 2 lessons. In my head, I'm going about a year's worth of training this guy's done. So I'm going to put him in the right environment. Now, I also tell them, listen, you need to tell me because it's going to be dangerous for you or dangerous for someone else. Because if I put you with the right people or the wrong people, it's going to be an injury, you know. And then the second thing, we have a guy come in and says, oh, it's like foot locking everyone. And I say, okay, let's train. Foot lock me. Do whatever you like, you know. And you can educate them differently, but 99.9% we have very decent human beings that come in. We treat everyone with respect, courtesy. We don't bully no one, but they're not going to come and bully us for sure, you know. And and we kind of try and form this family bond with them, and you don't really want to hurt your family members, you know.
That's right. I think it's cool to have that implemented as an instructor, so people know the score, you know, when they walk in, you know, this is Eddie Kone's academy, you know, I'm not going to fuck about, like I'm here to learn.
Sure.
That's awesome.
Because it's such a fickle business, you know, because we're touching on our love and passion for the sport, but ultimately it's a business, ultimately it's a commodity, ultimately it's a brand, and one misrepresentation of that brand or that business or that academy, it's not the academy, it's not that individual, it's the whole academy like that. Right. So we're very cautious and very, very careful with what we do. A lot of schools don't run their schools as businesses. They see everyone as pound notes who walk in. You know, they're what's the word I'm looking for? Treating everyone the same, when I believe it should be treating everyone in accordance with their individual needs. You know, someone out of shape, you have to treat them very different to some athlete guy. Someone who has no knowledge, different to someone who can fight. Someone who's a street fighter, who you know, there's so many facets, so many energies in that place. There's so much energy, so much testosterone, so male and female. And there's a big thing in the jiu-jitsu community, you know, about being gay. You cannot train in our academy if you're gay. That's the craziest, most absurd thing I've ever heard in my life, you know. What are we going to say next? You can't train here because you're Muslim, because you're black, because you're white. What are we doing here? Like, is it a political movement now?
100%.
You know, it's absolutely absurd. There's a big thing when I was training jiu-jitsu about, you know, you can't train if you're gay. I want you, all these kind of stuff, and people don't openly, they're afraid to have these conversations and speak about that. And me, I'm a real dude. Listen, if you want to come and train with me and you're pink, yellow, black, white, gay, whatever you are, there's a space for you right on my mat. And we will embrace you open-handed, you know? And we won't tolerate that.
100%. Have you seen other academies not have that same ethos then?
Listen, I don't want to say any names. You've only got to scour and you will see. I would never send my kids to train at that place, you know, and you will see what they say. I will never send my children there. It's 2020. We listen, we don't trade in cattle anymore. We're not trading in horse and carts anymore, right? This is a totally different era. And we have to be open, and we have to be transparent, and we have to be just in what we're doing. And I just think there are so many backward people trying to hold on to something that has no relevance in this time.
Right, but I just don't see the kind of relevance, man. Like I don't see the hatred behind it. You know, like it's kind of a bit. If they have so much hate towards something, like what are you?
We've got this, you know. That's only one facet to deal with. From such a beautiful art, you can't train here because of your sexual orientation or your preference. Are you kidding me? Like, man, you know, I would, if I was that way, if I was gay or whatever, and I went to train at a school and they said, you know, and I start hearing this stuff, I'm leaving and I'm going to boycott that.
100%.
Are you crazy? Are you kidding me? You know? And I don't really care. And I say very clearly in my academy, this is not a political group. We're not a political group. You are not my students. You guys and girls are students of jiu-jitsu. And the jiu-jitsu world is massive. I like you to go train here, go see that, go train, bring that back and do this and have friends, invite your friends from other gyms. And this goes back to, I believe it's a virus and an insecurity in some gyms and fear. I honestly believe, you know, because if you can imagine when you're young and you're born into the world, we know nothing but love and the want to live. And we look at the world with amazement, right? We're looking around at amazement. It's such a beautiful thing, like trees and skies and all the rest of it. And then we go through life and we grow and that we've no inhibitions and no insecurities. And one day in jiu-jitsu, someone comes to us and says, do you like training here? You go, yeah, I love training here. You like everyone, right? Yeah, I love it. You cannot go and train somewhere else because you'll be a Krianchi if you go train there. You'll be outwashed. You can't train there. We now own your jiu-jitsu and your everything you do, right? And they instill that poison in you. And you go, oh my God, if I go and even train in that gym, even look there, I've betrayed and I'm disloyal and I'm this. And which is absolutely another absurdity of jiu-jitsu. Because jiu-jitsu is such a vast ocean where everyone is adding to the pot. And we should all be able to walk head high into another school and not worry about the flag that I'm wearing. And say, listen, I'm from this school and I'm proud to be from that school and I've come to learn. I've come to share and I've come to learn. Right? This is really to go back to the academy you came from and then be outcast and abused and you know, by your instructor. That is another crazy myth in jiu-jitsu that bugs me.
This is something that is really interesting because from where I'm from in Lincoln, just to give you some context, I started jiu-jitsu at the start of this year. So I'm kind of doing the podcast. I'm starting everything as I learn, sort of thing. So I'm very new to the sport, and I've been to one class, East Midlands Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in Lincoln, and it's got the most amazing atmosphere, man. Like everyone's super open, like everyone's really kind, and you know, it's just a good atmosphere. And there's no competition, right? So
what academy was that, if you don't mind? Because from what you're describing, I'd love to visit.
Yeah, East Midlands BJJ. If you type it in on Instagram or on Google, you can find it, man. We'd love to have it for a seminar. Get in touch with Sam. But there's no competition. Like that's the only one in Lincoln, right? So everyone comes and there's no kind of like that negative energy at all. And I kind of wanted to go because I've only been to that one class. I don't know what it's like in other areas, even in the UK. A lot of people, they come on my podcast from America, like different parts of the world, and they're saying, "What's it like in the UK?" I'm like, I don't want to be ignorant. I honestly don't know. Like, I just feel like I'm a little bubble. And what's your kind of take on in the whole of the UK? Because would you say it's quite a big martial art?
It's huge. It's on every place in the world, you know. Every place in this world where I step, I have a connection with someone through jiu-jitsu, whether it's formats at his house or her house, or a massive academy in one of the metropolises around the world. And I can walk in and step on the mat just like you can and be welcomed and accepted and embraced, and people love it, right? And when people say, oh, you hear these cliches like jiu-jitsu is my life and this and that, they have no idea how deep this thing is. It's taken me to so many different places. Like some of the most biggest MMA events in the world, I've been cage side, coaching corners. I've coached celebrities. you know, you name it. I kind of I've had such a positive thing from jiu-jitsu. So when we talk about the negative, we're talking about a drop in an ocean. But the thing for me is you can't odds it. You've got family in every part of the world, you know, and that family is jiu-jitsu. That language is jiu-jitsu. We talk in a universal language. It's unbelievable, you know.
That's incredible.
Something came out of Brazil, from Japan to Brazil. From Brazil, they spread it globally in a different limelight, you know.
Wow. And so if you were to anyone who is coming over to the UK, or someone who's thinking about moving somewhere just to be kind of surrounded by jiu-jitsu, where would you say in the UK would be the best place to go? I'm guessing London would be one of the best places, right?
London's a metropolis, right? But we have some of the best jiu-jitsu instruction in the world here. We've got Royler Gracie here. You know, undeniably one of the greatest to ever put a gi on and do it, right? We have his father, Maurizio Gomez, you know. We have Braulio over there, you know. All the others, each one of them are great in their own right. There's no one who's not good. If they're wearing a black belt, brown belt, they're good. They're great. You know, listen, they're great. It doesn't mean their personality is right or proper or great, because there's some scandalous news that has surfaced recently. But what I'm saying is, if you go to a jiu-jitsu school and you know, you want to look for the signs that it's not a cult, it's an open kind of, everyone's open-minded, and don't watch the instructor. Look around at the students, see what's going on, get the vibe of the academy, meet a couple of the guys and train with them. And then before you know it, you find a place. I have students that train here, there, and everywhere. And I applaud it. I say to them, go ahead, do that, you know, because we constantly grow as humans. And the moment we stop growing and we limit ourselves to 4 walls and a mat, that's the end. I'm going to hang my belt up and leave. You know, we're bigger than that. Our energy, we can go anywhere and fit in, you know, and that's incredible. Absolutely.
So when you kind of came back from Brazil and you thought, this is what I want to do, and then you went into the forces, how did the academy come about?
I began to teach out of a garage, believe it or not, which my wife made for me because of my love for jiu-jitsu, and I would invite people in to wrestle.
I love this. I just love stories that people have just come from, you know, right from the start. Like, started things in the garage. Like, I don't know if you saw it. It's a bit off topic, but
I'll tell you who trained with me in that garage. A very, very respected, famous martial artist by the name of Bob Breen. He was one of Dan Inosanto's students, and Dan Inosanto was Bruce Lee's student. And so he's a direct lineage. And this guy used to come and take lessons with me. And I used to learn from him.
What was his name?
Bob
what was his name?
Breen. Bob B-O-B, Breen, B-R-E-E-N. Incredible guy. One of the most incredible martial artists I've ever met in my life. And, yeah. And absolutely pillar of a man, you know, from a different martial arts background. Now, when I was training with Bob was quite senior. And I said to myself, man, I got to take a little easy with this guy in case I injure the guy. Yeah. This guy is solid. After a double hip replacement, he's solid. Jesus. Like, he would get on me and bite me, and I'll be like, oh my God. And he would be like, yeah, that's what happened in a street fight. And we started reality. That's the guy, Guru Bob, right?
Yeah.
And I was training with Bob many years ago, like 15 years ago, maybe longer. And now he's
Wow.
doing his own. He's an incredible martial artist. He's not just a martial artist. He practices what he preaches. He's a legit old school martial artist. So yeah, we started there, and I had various people coming in. And then we progressed into a leisure center where we would have to take mats out, put mats down. We'd have a slot there on a Tuesday and Thursday, I believe. And I started with around 4 students. 2 of them are still training with me now, so far down the line. One is a brown belt, one is a black belt. And yeah, we put the mats out, and we were in the times where challenge matches would happen. People would come in,
Right.
and they'd heard it now. It was post 93, so this Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, yeah, you guys fight and this and that. And I can remember coming into the academy one day, and it was in the leisure center, and all of my students were in a corner, all huddled together like sheep. And I'm thinking, what's going on? What's happening? And then I turned the corner where we used to pull the mesh across, and there was a hulk of a guy, about 5'11", no neck, bald, with a clump of hair on his back of his head, in a pair of shorts and a vest. And the vest said, "I see dead people." And he was bouncing up and down.
No.
A Romanian guy by the name of Remos. And when I came into the academy, I said, "Oh my God, like that's what's happening." So I went over to him, shook his hand, and he was like, "Are you the instructor?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "I come to train." And I said, "Okay." And then he said, I said, "Have you trained before?" He said, "Yeah, I wrestle." And I said, "Okay."
All right.
And this wasn't like a no rules kind of bare knuckle fight. But let's say we trained, and he was submitted several times, and then became a student with us. Now owns a school in Romania and has fought in MMA, and has a very successful school in Romania now. So that was one. That was the very first match I had, and then I had a few other unsavory matches that happened, which we were in a quite bad neighborhood back then. And they used to hassle students and our female students, and there was all sorts of, and it ended up the kind of thing that happened towards the end was the number one guy came into the academy with a pit bull terrier and a couple of friends, and threatened to let the dog go in the academy. And then I challenged him to a fight there and then, and he ended up having his arm broken during the fight. But that ended that reign of what they thought we were, and what was acceptable and what wasn't. But anyone who's been around the time I have, I'm sure would have very similar stories. And they are just stories, but those are factual stories, and students will verify those actually happened. So that was our second academy. And then we've kind of progressed through various academies in various areas to where we are now. We have a very nice academy where we are now. Very nice kind of setup. And when I look back and see the progress, I hit this thing like a comet. I didn't realize the meteoric rise we would have in that sense, and the progress of jiu-jitsu, like how I started off as someone who was just in it to train and spar as a younger man to kind of just have fun, to now where it's a pillar in the community. It's a home for people. We give kids classes, women's self-defense classes, adult classes, group classes for kids from deprived backgrounds, kids that are from violent and prolific offender backgrounds. We help those guys, so we do various programs, and that's a big thing from where we came from to where we are and to where we're going. We're still progressing. I only look back to see how far we come. No other reason.
Amazing. So is it just you as the instructor, or do you have other instructors that you've brought up to train? Because that's what my instructor is saying he wants to do eventually. He wants to basically train people to a level and then give them the opportunity to teach.
Have you read that book by Marcus Aurelius? Have you read the book?
I've started it.
Okay.
Yeah.
There is a very nice quote which reads, "You can never serve another man or have never given another man anything unless you give him something that he can make a living from and feed his family." Because the instructors that I have in my academy are now making money and providing for their family. That's incredible. Through jiu-jitsu.
Amazing.
Through the way we paved.
Yeah.
through the way we pave. Now, not only here, I have academies, there's like 20 plus academies around Europe dotted around with black belt instructors in, you know, and I have world champions in my academy, in my association, real world IBJJF champions, European champions, not some hidden away championship, legitimate world champions. And they haven't done it once, they've done it a couple of times. We have academies and affiliate academies in Romania, Kuwait, Brazil.
Is this under the same name, Eddie Kone Academy? Is this all?
No. I don't impose the name on them. They all, if you Google them, they come up. It's that simple. And you know, we have one of the original academies in Romania, Absoluto BJJ, which is one of the most decorated academies, I believe, in Romania. It's the first academy we set up. They have world champions, they have UFC fighters, they have Bellator fighters, the same as we have here. And that brand, and this is the beautiful thing, I never say to them, it must be EKBJJ. You can be whatever you want to be. You can be, we have a gentleman's agreement. You know, our affiliates are trained in a way that you can go to each school and it's the same principle, same mindset, same training. These guys now that in my academy, these instructors, there are black belts, brown belts, blue belts, purple belt instructors in there. And I'm hoping one day they too will open their own school and change lives and make money and feed their family. And that's the whole goal, you know. I'm not looking for the best instructors or the best students. I'm looking for the right students. And don't get me wrong, I've turned students away before. When people come into my academy, I ask them, hey, why are you here? What do you want to do? And they tell me, I want to be a world champion. I openly tell them, this may not be the right environment for you to become a world champion. We can assist you, but it may not be. If your sole goal is to go and win the world championship, you need to be around world champions. You need to be around that environment that can create that for you. Our sole focus is the original Gracie Jiu-Jitsu in accordance to the teachings and fight philosophy of Grandmaster Helio Gracie, which is self-defense. That said, we have world champions. We have UFC. There's a reason they frequent our place.
I think it's cool that you've had that exposure to how the originals do it, and I'm really hoping that you're able to give it to your instructors so they can go on and kind of carry on the culture of the original jiu-jitsu.
We all know it. We all have it. It's what our priorities are on the mat that make the difference. Because it would be ludicrous of me to say, you know, we can't get you to a certain point. Because my instructor is an unbelievable fighter, unbelievable champion. No one has the accolades that he has. Royler, you know, Hickson, those guys, you know, Kron. No one has, you know, has done that thing, you know, or replicated it. So for us to say that would be incorrect. But what we say is that's not our priority. That's not the priority of what we teach here. But we have those accolades in our academy. But that's not what our sole focus is on.
Right, yeah, for sure. And so do you do a lot of traveling to Romania and these places where you've got these European
I'm always traveling.
Affiliates? You're always traveling. How do you spend your time? Because obviously if you're not doing the teaching, are you kind of elsewhere doing traveling and bits and pieces?
If I'm not in my academy, I'm teaching a seminar somewhere. Otherwise, you'll find me on my mats, you know. And if I'm not on my mats, then there are many black belts in the academy that are there, our black belts that know what I know, that teach what I teach. But I'm never like at home, feet up on the couch while those classes are going on. Our beginner classes are very different. But if you can imagine, I teach multiple private lessons every day before COVID happened. And then group classes twice a day. So it's a pretty full schedule, 6 days a week, right? So it's pretty full. So you can imagine when COVID hit me, it was like, where does all this time come from?
Right.
And it wasn't the fact that it was lockdown that kind of made it odd for me. It was the fact that I've got all this time. What am I going to do? Well, I'm going to be progressive and I'm going to do things that are I can better myself, which will in turn better my students and better those around me, and add value to their life, because that's a big thing, adding value to people's lives, you know. So maybe that book that I've read and I take something from it and share it on the mat will then make someone else better and more empowered, and all the rest of it.
Where are you with the book? Are you nearly there with publishing it?
Yeah, it's right there. It's good to go. It by mistake fell into the hands of a publisher who put a different slant on it and was like, I can get this published for you. I can do this, and I was like, okay, but
it's one of them.
What's in it for you? What's in it for them, right? Are you doing this for the great? Like, I want someone who can go to read the book and go, I connect with that. You know, not just place it for the sake of placing it, but they connect with it and say, I feel that my connection with that book will help push that book into the right place. You know, I'm not looking for the best in the business. I'm looking for it to go into the right place. You know?
So it's one of them things where you don't want to kind of rush it. You don't want to get it out there too fast, and you want to get your point across that will resonate with someone. And if it can change one person's perspective, it's worth it.
Absolutely.
So obviously I'm looking forward to reading it, but I don't want to rush you. But like, when you do publish it, bro, do send me a message. I'm definitely down to read.
Cool. Listen,
that'll be awesome.
What you're saying about the 1% is right. We have this thing in the academy. The 1% is the 1% mindset. We always aim to be 1% better than we walk through the door, and 1% better than we were yesterday. You know, I didn't wake up the same person I was yesterday, and I for sure I'm not going to go to sleep the same person as I woke up with today. I have so much kind of stuff going on that it's very hard to get the words out. You know, there's so much to vocalize, because this seems to spin quicker than that thinks, you know, that reaction.
But I think that as long as you've got good intention, it will come out in its own way. And if you're in a circumstance where someone actually needs some advice, having all that spinning around, you can pick from what you need to say to that one person.
And I don't know everything. In the grand scheme, I know so little, right? There are people out there that know much more than me, that are less in my age group, that are younger than me, but are more educated. And I always find myself sitting with those people and learning from them, be very quiet and learn. And then sometimes I'm the guy that people asking advice, and I'm like, oh shit, you know, and you know, I'm like, the funny saying, they say that I've lived a life of 90 years in my age, because of the stuff that I've been involved in and done, and that's hilarious for me, you know.
That's awesome. Listen, bro, we'll wrap up on that, but if you could give, because the whole podcast is basically to inspire people to start jiu-jitsu, as I did at the start of this year. So if you could kind of give one massive takeaway that you could say that you've got from all the years of jiu-jitsu and training with the Gracies and all your experience in life, what would you say would be the most valuable advice or something you could give to someone who's just starting jiu-jitsu?
First of all, I would say, you know, everything that I've said in this in your podcast is my own opinion. It's not the opinion of anyone else. So whether rightly or wrongly, it falls on my shoulders. But I would say this: one of the greatest takeaways I've had, and what I can share from jiu-jitsu, is breaking fear. You know, if you're afraid, if you're timid, if you're worried, jiu-jitsu is that savior. You know, if you're afraid to walk under ladders, man, you better put ladders in your house and just walk under them all day until that fear goes. And jiu-jitsu is the same. It will teach you how to break down fears, how to disseminate them, and realize that the only fear that you have, the biggest fear, is yourself. The biggest enemy you have is yourself. And it's a virus, you know, it's a virus that fear and danger are two different things. And fear being that if I say, hey, Joe, listen, don't go train with that guy because he's going to choke you. And you're, oh my God, you're afraid of the choke now and you're not experiencing that whole jiu-jitsu thing. So don't be afraid. Go on the mat, face the fears, embrace them, and come through them. And constantly break down those fear barriers. Just chip away at them. You know, that's going to be the biggest takeaway, and that will manifest itself in the whole of your life.
Face adversity, and that's
100%.
what deals with fear, man. That's awesome. So how can people get in touch with yourself if on social media, or have you got a website or anything like that?
Humble bragging time, eh? It's on Insta, but it's all my name. It's EKBJJ.com, or Instagram is the easiest one, at EKBJJ. And that's where you'll find me, man. That's I'm on there quite a bit. I'm just kind of scouring the Instagram.
That's it, man.
Yeah,
That's awesome. We'd love to have you for a seminar, man. If you could get in touch with Sam, we'd absolutely love to have you.
Tell Sam to hit me up. Listen, I would love to come in and share and learn. You know, share and learn. That's the big thing. Where are you guys based? Lincoln.
Lincoln.
Yeah.
So it's
Never
like
been
central.
there,
Central. Yeah, it's central. It's just a small town, man. There's a couple 100,000. Not many people there at all. But I think the lads would really appreciate it, bro.
Yeah, love to come and share.
Awesome, man. Well, have a good day, brother.
You too, Joe.
Great to speak.
Appreciate your time. Thank you, mate.